You nervous?
No.
Alrighty, we're back. New year, kind of a new season. Loving life. We've been doing some promo work last year, working to get some things back on the regular. Really trying to pump out some regular episodes and talk to more people that are doing cool stuff here in town, and even a little bit outside of town. So without further ado, we're bringing it back to one of my good friends, Mr. Trevor, or T. Scove, right?
Yeah.
How you doing, bud?
Good. How are you?
Can you tell anybody that might be listening a little bit about who you are, or like what you do, or kind of what you're doing in life right now, man?
Yeah. Well, if you recognize who I am, it's probably because you saw me down at Copper Spoon or Wine Down back in the day. And then now you might know me as just a bartender from Sidecar at Copper Spoon, or the ice guy, or the whiskey guy, or just kind of that big guy, as they call me.
The big guy behind the bar.
Yeah, that big guy behind the bar.
How long you been at Copper Spoon, or formerly known as Wine Down?
This will be 5 years now that I walked in there for the first time.
Really?
Yep.
Has it gone by pretty quick then?
Yeah.
Dude, you've grown a lot.
Yeah. I was 24 when I first walked in the door, so now 29. It just feels like it's been a really crazy 5 years. It doesn't feel like it's been 5 years, but you look back to some of the stuff that we used to be doing, and I don't know, you try not to be ashamed of it or embarrassed by it, and just be proud of where you're at now.
So a lot of people might know, or they might not know. I know, obviously, from talking to you, you didn't always work in this kind of an industry. You didn't necessarily do the fancy cocktails, or pouring flames from high above into a cup. Where were you before?
I mean, primarily I was an engineer. I did what you're, I guess, supposed to do to make mom and dad proud, go to college and get a degree with a good paying job, and, work a Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and such as that, buy a boat and a house and sell it all and have kids and whatever. And while going to college and starting to get in the IT world, and I always had this, I guess, slight dream of opening a bar. A friend of mine wanted to open a video game bar. We thought that was going to be all the fad. And this is actually before even 16-bit and places had opened. And I remember he was going to try and get a loan from his parents or his grandparents. And they had said, well, you've never worked in a bar, so we would love it if you maybe went and got a job in a bar first. And I remember thinking, God, that's stupid. You don't have to work in a bar before you can own a bar. That's ridiculous, whatever. And then things happened. I guess if we really even just say it, I wanted to move to New York and try to be an actor. So I needed a bartending job in order to do that. So I got a bartending job and then learned how much I didn't know about restaurants, and how being behind a bar was so different. And it felt really, really good. A Friday night at 9 o'clock with a busy bar, it felt better than it ever did behind a desk or in a lab. And I started looking forward to that more and more and more. Comedy and acting slowly faded away and became less of a tangible avenue or dream. And then getting off work Friday at 5, everyone else was excited to go home, and I was excited to just get behind a bar. And even at that time, I was pouring Fireball and Bud Light and doing $5 Long Island specials. But with enough time, it eventually grew into what it is now.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy? I mean, this is something that I've been reflecting on over the last few years. You grow up and you're thinking, oh, I got to do this, I got to get this job, I got to get that job. How much of that is put on you by other people?
Oh, for sure.
You look at culture and you're kind of like, oh man, I need to get that engineering job, or oh, if I want to make banger bucks, I got to get that degree. But a lot of it is you just got to find what you're doing and what you're loving and what fulfills you. Like you're saying, the desk, the lab, it didn't matter what project you're working on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But once you get behind that bar, it's a totally different story.
Yeah. It's I guess you assume growing up that it's the security that maybe it is that your parents want for you, or just that I think everyone seeks for, kind of knowing where money's coming from and knowing you've got this, you've got it. But I guess as a kid, all the people you idolized really didn't do that. They eventually at some point went and chased what they wanted. And as cliche as it sounds, when you find it, if you can do it, do it.
Yeah.
They say if you whatever, if you find a job you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's not true. You'll work really, really hard and probably make less money than what the easy way out was. But at least you'll be truly happy doing it.
I think we were also talking before, your dad had said something kind of wise about that, right? Like you'll always work, or what was it?
If you don't just think that you won't work, you really got to imagine yourself getting off of whatever job you have after working like 100 hours that week and starting to relax at home. And then if your phone rings and it's work and they want you to come back, find a job that you'd answer that phone call, and that's a job you'll never feel like you're working.
Yeah, I mean, that's hard to find, but it is kind of cool though that we're starting to see a culture shift of, hey, maybe college isn't for you. You know, maybe you should take a gap year. Maybe you should try different things. Maybe you should start working at a bar on the side. You know, and then you'll actually find what's going to be good. I
think even into the software world, I had a pretty good friend of mine that was most of the way through his Purdue computer science degree, and he started learning to code when he was 12, 13 years old, and that was even in the early aughts of 2000, before Khan Academy and Code Academy had really taken off. And even nowadays with all those tools, like, what makes you a good software engineer is not a degree, it's the knowledge behind it. And the institution is standardized for sure, but so many people that can kind of take control of their path and just kind of make it. That guy ended up dropping out of college, and his professor was like, well, like, good luck ever walking onto, Intel or AMD or wherever you thought you could work. Like, you're not. I mean, without having a degree, they're not even going to look at your application. But in his eyes, he's like, I've been coding longer than most of these guys have been in college, and I can do this. He owns a keyboard company now that's like doing ridiculously well. Isn't
that crazy?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Yeah. People that are determined are going to do it, no matter what the path is, really.
Yeah. Would you say, I mean, I feel like you're a slightly determined dude. I mean, you started a business on the side with the ice stuff, and coming from a background of like zero bartending to volume bartending to now, some people know you're top 15 in 2018 in the United States as a bartender. Would you say you're slightly a determined individual?
Yeah, very.
Yeah.
Yeah, intense.
How much of your engineering background plays into learning some of these new things? Because it's not easy as you get older to learn newer
For
things.
Sure.
YouTube makes it great, but you can't YouTube everything, especially in the creative space.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's definitely being able to break apart what you're doing step by step and kind of visualize it. And I think as an engineer, you got into engineering first because of who you were. Engineering, I think, doesn't typically teach that person methodical processes or wanting to look at something and figure out all its moving parts or dissect something. I think that's kind of the person already has that. And most people apply like, oh, well, you should be an engineer. Or you could actually, maybe you could make a lot of cocktails in really quick succession.
Did you get a lot of pushback once you started kind of getting more into working with Wind Down and whatnot? I mean, whether it's from family or...
For sure, from family. I mean, the age-old, I guess, joke in the industry is people always ask you, like, what's your real job? Or what do you really do for a living? Because you can't possibly, be doing this. But I get it. I think it's hard to tell any family member that, hey, that degree you might have helped pay me for, I'm actually going to pour booze all night and sleep all day. At least what they're going to see, But even if that is what it is you're going to do, if you're happy doing it and it pays your bills, then...
Yeah, I mean, you can't live for other people's expectations, right?
For sure, yeah.
And that's just a dangerous road to go down, and too many people go down it. And I mean, there's a lot of people now, I think, are realizing they should have taken a leap earlier, like when they were our age. They should have done something a little bit risky, and now they're stuck. They've gone down the road and, had the kids, bought the house. Not that having kids is bad. It's a great thing. For sure. But like, you go down that road too far and you don't take that inner self-assessment, and it's like, oh shoot, what I'm doing. And then you wind up being on the other side of the bar too many times, or whatever it is, finding happiness in places that aren't necessarily the best place to find happiness.
Right. Yeah. You turn out when you thought that going the standard route of life was just what was gonna happen. And you realized, oh, this wasn't for me. Yeah. I'm 40.
So does your family still live here?
Yep.
Does your family support you now?
Yeah. Yeah, both of my parents are sober about like 6 or 7 years. Yeah.
No, you're joking. They're sober and you're a bartender.
Yep.
Are you the only?
Like bartender.
No, are you the only kid?
Yeah, I'm an only child. I do have step siblings now.
Okay.
But yep, only child, and both sides are sober.
Completely, like not an ounce.
Not an ounce.
And how many years have they been sober?
I think my dad's gonna be 10 years this year.
Jeez.
Yeah,
that's impressive. For him, that's a
sure.
phenomenal thing. What does that mean for you on a regular basis? Like, you got family on both sides that are sober. They don't even touch alcohol.
Yeah.
Here you are touching it every day.
Yeah.
Making a living with it.
I think that was the hard part, maybe as a buy-in at first for them, because they obviously know the dangers of the alcohol world and what it can become. And I think for me, being exposed to that when I was younger is kind of actually what aided to enjoying the idea of bartending. I wasn't sold on this a day of drinking yet. And so when I first started like going to parties and I was younger and I wasn't sold yet, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to drink because I've seen, it can be kind of dangerous maybe. So I would just kind of hang back and end up
dangerous
being,
how?
You just, partying too hard and what it can do, and just seeing that on a personal level. So I ended up just kind of hanging back, and people would stumble into the kitchen where alcohol is at a party, and I would just be like, oh, I'll make you something. Why not? And then it'd be like, oh, this is kind of fun. And then learning like, oh, girls kind of like a guy that can make some good shots.
Doing it for the ladies.
And then like, okay, now I understand this feeling of like facilitating a party and not just being the party. And it feels kind of cool. And kind of pushing with that.
So I want to touch on that in a minute, because you said facilitating the party, and I feel like that's a lot of what bartenders do.
Yeah.
Specifically you at Copper Spoon and your whole team. But let's rewind it a little bit. Your parents are sober. You bartend quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do you ever find it hard to just be able to relate and say, no, I made this drink, it tasted like this? Or do you wind up making them mocktails? I know, I do appreciate that your guys' menu, the very first page is a page of mocktails.
Yeah.
Like, I just think that's cool.
For sure. The spirit-free side of the industry is expanding. And I think knowing that it doesn't have to be... it doesn't have to be all about, the buzz or the feeling of just sometimes creating flavors is really fun. On the family side, they come in now. I mean, they'll come in and enjoy the food. We've got a great chef, so they're able to come in and see the environment. And the drinks part of it, I think that they appreciate the creativity and understand that there's an art to it. But yeah, it's something where the stories of that I can't sit and talk about, like this cocktail I was really excited to finally come up with, because, it's not that important though. But the business side of it, they can appreciate.
That's good. And then also being able to make flavors that don't necessarily involve alcohol.
Yeah.
We can touch on it now, actually, being a facilitator of the party, not necessarily just a host or an attendee. Would you say that's mostly your role as a bartender, whether it's an alcoholic drink or a non-alcoholic drink that you're making? Or even just interacting with people across the bar? Would you say you're more of a party facilitator? Yeah, that's what it's all about. You wouldn't, if you go to someone's house party and the host ends up just drunk first and face down in the bathroom, that's never a good party. It feels kind of weird. And I think the same thing would go being at a bar. I think sometimes people have been in a bar maybe where the bartender's drunk and it's awkward. And it can be easy to being behind the bar and taking the hype of all the fun and everyone's looking at you and you're having a good time and engaging and letting that get to you a bit, and you end up drinking a little too much behind the bar and it gets weird. So instead you recognize your role as the person you're not supposed to be the party. Your goal first is to focus on how you're making people feel, and with that is creating a safe environment. So you're paying attention to everything, whether someone, I explained it to this 21-year-old kid, probably not to, I guess, stereotype him, but he's more than likely 21, and he came into Miracle one night recently and he was just absolutely faded, and he was just bouncing around, jumping up and down, making a fool of himself, and it was taken away from everyone else's ability to have fun. And I think cutting people off is an art form just as much as serving people, because you have to do it in a way that's not confrontational. You have to do it in a way that's not offensive. It happens. It should happen. Being cut off should probably happen more often, but I think it's been turned into this really dark, scary thing to do. And so people tend to get overserved. But I remember just telling the kid, I was like, so this party is, this event, this tonight is for everyone in the room, not just you. So but you
making the party so much about yourself right now is taken away from everyone else's ability to have fun. And I think he really understood it. And someone else next to him, who was an older dude, probably 50, was just really taken back by that and was like, that's a really killer way to explain like being drunk at a bar.
Yeah.
He's like, I've never heard it, explained like in such a way, but it's true. And as the bartender, you have to, you facilitate that party. You're paying attention to making sure if this girl is on a first date, if that guy's getting too creepy and she needs maybe an out, or if someone else at the end of the bar is drinking a little bit too much, or just what's the vibe of the area, the lights need to go down, does the music need to get louder.
So there's a lot of people skills that you just got to develop over time and have, and being able to read. And
and some of that's going to be natural. And it's, knowing what everyone is coming to your bar to do. Is this person looking for a job? This person's looking to meet somebody. This person's looking to get laid, whatever it is. But how do you kind of put those moving parts together and create like a cohesive environment for everybody?
Would you say that's something you've learned over time? Like, did you have it right when you started, or
not at all? No.
What's one of the times you really beefed that up bad?
I guess it was really just noticing from other bartenders that I was working with, being like, hey, like, the lights should be down right now, or hey, like the music sucks. And it was bartenders that had worked even at TGI, Apple, Chili's, corporate places for a long time, but even they were picking up on this at like 7:00 on a Friday. They are recognizing that, hey, the party's not really going, like the music's a little quiet, or the music's too slow, or the lights are too bright. And it was me catching on, being like, oh yeah, okay, I should do that. And it was a short stint. I worked at J.K. O'Donnell's here in town. And
really? With like Willis?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I remember them, like, they had the light switches for the environment was all behind the bar.
Yeah.
And I remember that being such a big focus for Basler or Willis. Like, they would turn the lights down always like around 6:30, 7:00. And it's just something that I started noticing that I had to pay attention to. It wasn't just about standing there and pouring up beer when it came through and getting a tip and leaving. That's really dry and boring, and who would want that to be their job? When you start paying attention to every dynamic in the entire room, that's when you really start creating a party or an environment for people to have fun in.
Is that something you're constantly doing? Even if you have friends that come into the bar and you're talking, you're looking over their shoulder, making sure people are having a good time. And
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call it, heads up bartending is key, because when you're shaking a drink, it's a moment to scan the room. Yeah. It's a moment to kind of check on everything that's going on.
Make sure it's all good.
Always having a pulse on kind of everything that's going on around you.
How much of this bartending thing do you think people could learn in a classroom? So say they go get, take a couple classes on how to shake a cocktail, they get licensed, right? Mm-hmm. Versus how much do you actually need to be there doing it, working underneath somebody? You can relate back in the engineering field. Sure. Everybody comes out of school and they think they're hot stuff, right? But I think only time will tell you, it pays to sit underneath some wisdom for a little while.
For sure. Yeah. Even using an engineering aspect from it. I remember the guy that owned the engineering firm I worked for, he had like a double PhD in electrical and mechanical or something, just ridiculous amount of education underneath him. And he was probably 70 years old. And I remember him putting me on this project, and I had no idea how to do it. I had no idea what the parameters were. I'd never worked in automotive and instrument clusters. And I told him, like, hey, I don't think I can do this project. And he said, well, as an engineer, I don't pay you to know how to do everything. I pay you to know how to learn and teach yourself. And it's very true. Like, you can go, my dad tells me a story. He's a computer science major. He does software, so you can see that goes more with the trajectory there of what he wanted.
No, same way, man. My dad worked at NASA in Florida, and all growing up, like, he never wound up going to college. And all growing up, he's like, "You're gonna go to college. You're gonna study this. You're gonna go to college. You're gonna study this." Yeah. And then, look at me now. So
I definitely became a nerd. Definitely on the computer end, because I was into it and I understood it at a young age. Understood it more than most 30-year-olds. By the time I was 12, understood computers. But I remember my dad interviewing for this job to do software, and some like fresh grad was doing the interview and basically was trying to get my dad to like reiterate code and reiterate rules on a board. And my dad, having done engineering for like 30 years, is in his head just kind of chuckling, because this is just some fresh out of high school grad who wants to brag that he can just write C++ on a whiteboard. That doesn't matter. And my dad walking away from the interview not wanting the job anymore, because if they're going to put experienced engineer in the room with someone young who wants to just brag or feel big, that's not really what the job is. When going back to even what my boss had told me, that you're not paid to know everything, you're paid to know how to figure it out. And I think with bartending, that's such a big buy-in that people in the industry would want you to have. How he hasn't been working that long. How can someone really know what they're doing if they've only been behind the bar for a year? But I think it's probably a 50-50 blend of the person themselves and who they are, if they kind of naturally have it, or if they don't and they're just trying to force it. And it's,
when did you realize that you, and I'm saying this because you obviously have received some awards nationally, even locally, you're kind of recognized. When did you start realizing that you had a knack for it, that you were naturally inclined to?
I still don't think I do. Maybe that's part of it. This is just still wanting to get better. Still, people watch bartenders to try to watch how they make a drink and learn, but you also have to watch, I think, how a bartender interacts with their guests and learn from that as well.
Right.
And reading the moment, reading people. Some people don't want to be educated over every detail in the moment. They just want to get something. You don't have to take the time to explain to them what gluten-free vodka means. You just get them what they want and just move on.
What does it mean?
Nothing. It means they paid extra to have it labeled that way.
That's fair.
So yes, I think if you go to the classroom idea, I think you can teach a lot of mechanics. You can teach someone how to make a Negroni, how to stir a cocktail. That's all just physical dexterity, and that's, for the most part, can be taught. But sometimes you can't teach someone how to read a room. You can't teach someone how to be charismatic. You can't teach someone how to make a bar feel comfortable.
Would you say your team does a good job of that?
I would say that we do a good job of it because we're constantly working on being better at it.
Is that like your life motto, or?
Yeah, be better.
Be better?
Yep.
Why?
Because I just think that being better fits in so many different ways. I'll be better by doing good, whether it's doing good to others or doing good yourself. But just in every aspect of your life, you can be better. Be a better friend, be a better partner, be better at work, be better in every way. They're just trying to take everything down to this idea of motivation or integrity of, do you know that you could be better than what you're doing? And are you just kind of cutting out because you don't want to put forth the effort? Or do you know that you can be better and you just don't believe that you can, and removing those roadblocks and just doing it?
You mentioned even being at home partner. Bartending is an interesting career, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You're not home during the day.
Yeah.
Most jobs are during the day. You're out late, you're around booze.
Yep.
You're getting home probably 3-4 o'clock in the morning. Yeah. What is that like on a personal side of things?
It's tough. The dating world as a bartender can be tough. I've been lucky to find someone who shares a little part of that industry with me. She's in school and has more. She's busier than I am. My girlfriend. So it's hard to totally correlate.
+1 for T-Scove over here.
Yeah, but it just takes really committed people to understanding that if the other person's schedule is going to be hectic and weird, that's okay. I always joke that if I was like a third shift ER doctor, this wouldn't be an issue. So what's the difference between being a third shift bartender? But when you're, like anything, schedules can suck and schedules can be hard. And working late nights, especially being around booze, you can get caught up in that side of the industry if you want to. But I think if you're committed to, just being at home or making home life
is that a
important
thing? I feel like it's assumed. I don't know if it's actually a thing, bartenders, and then they get off and it's like, well, I'm going to go down a bottle of Old Forester or whatever. Yeah,
I think it's a choice. Bartending for a long time was viewed as, you get off work at 3 and you go share a bottle sitting on someone's porch until 7 or 8 in the morning and sleep until 2 and go back in at 4 or 5 and just rinse and repeat for hopefully not 20 years. Because then you suddenly life has passed you and you're like, oh no, this isn't good. I'm 40 and I haven't gotten better at anything. I haven't,
right.
Becoming an actual, if we want to make bartending look more, or the hospitality industry in general, the idea is to sell it as, in 20 years when a kid, this 18, 19, 21, 25, 30-year-old decides, I'm going to be a bartender. People aren't like, oh. They're
change the perception.
Cool. Yeah, you got to change the perception on that in general in hospitality. The reason.
Would you say there's a career in bartending?
Yeah, absolutely.
In particular? What would that career look like for somebody?
Whatever they want to make it as.
It's that flexible.
Yeah, for sure. You could find there are people I know that do travel and bartending. They've
Really, that's a
decided
thing.
to take this nomad perspective to it of, I'm going to work summers or winters. I'm going to work in Puerto Rico, and summers I'm going to go to Miami, and then I'm going to go and just travel.
Wow.
Bartenders are needed everywhere. Bartending is something, the human element of that is a walk-on gig. So if you go to Australia and go behind a bar, you can do it.
Yeah.
Obviously language barriers can be tough, depending on where you go, but there are a lot of bartending can make you very well traveled, and that can be a thing.
I will say the bartenders in particular always seem to be the easiest to relate. When my wife and I were traveling, one of the places we stopped at was Ibiza. And I remember we were being served by the waiter, and then eventually it was just the bartender that came and served. And then at the end of everything, he brought around, it was like some type of homemade cultural just shot for the entire table. And we'd met some friends along the way, and he was there enjoying with us, but it almost made us feel like, almost like we were at home,
Yeah.
And so it's just a unique thing that I think transverses language.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what language you speak.
I mean, you're pulling a page from Anthony Bourdain at that point. What he always would do is, you go to another culture, another city, and you meet industry workers, meet people that are in hospitality, and you try, because it's immediate shoe into the culture. If you go to a law firm and you go to someone's desk and you're like, can I hang out with you after work? They're going to be like, no, leave me alone.
Right.
But if you go to a bar and you tell them you're from out of town, you just want to get to know, something, people are like, okay, like I'll show you this.
Go here, go there.
And then suddenly you've unlocked the key to the city, and you're meeting the true identity of what at least the nighttime pulse is like. And you'll learn about this random place you can get breakfast at that has no press whatsoever, but it's
like freaking amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, exactly. It's, it's $2 for a sandwich, but it's the best one you'll ever get.
Right.
Things like that.
So let's go back into you as a bartender in particular. I would say would you say it's fair to say that bartending's opened a lot of doors for you?
Yeah.
Both locally, nationally, internationally.
Yeah.
I think you just went to Europe and kind of toured some bars. Probably had the same experience. The bartender tells you where everything's at.
For sure.
Was that cool to go see? Is that cool for you to go see?
Yeah. Yeah, very.
What's cool about it? I mean, I feel like on some level, when you look at somebody else's craft that does the same thing that you do, you analyze it. So if it's a coach, they might look at another coach and they're analyzing playbooks or coaching methodologies. Sure. If it's a creative, they're analyzing, how many views they got, how many likes they got, or they're breaking it down technically. They did this wrong, they did that wrong. But then there's also the level where it's like, man, that's just really cool. Like, that's awesome. Like, where do you do some of that? Do you do all of that?
Yeah. It depends on where you're going. When I travel, there's usually a list of places that I have to go to. I'm getting ready to go to New York in a week, and the first 5 days of that is spent educational. But then that weekend, Abby is coming out, my girlfriend, and I'll get to show her New York for the first time. And then there's all these bars and restaurants that I've been just dying to go to, because every time you go to New York, there's not enough time. I mean, you could spend forever trying to find all these places, and there is like a validation or award system, globally, of best bars or best international cocktail bar. There's people that have gone higher and done so much that have won world class, and maybe they have a bar and you want to go check it out, or people that have just continually been beverage director of programs that are at the top of that top 5, top 10 list of best bars in the world, and so you want to go enjoy their food, enjoy their cocktails. And there's probably a lot of starstruck, like just fandom walking in. When I got to walk into the American bar, the Savoy, we're talking about the oldest operating European cocktail bar.
Oh, wow.
They opened in 1914, and Prohibition really pushed it forward.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on 1914. I know if you looked that up, I could be wrong, but it was around that time.
I put a little asterisk with the right date there.
But to walk in there and been like, oh my God, like I'm finally here. Instagram and YouTube and just you could watch from afar only so much. And then when you're there, it's really, really cool. And there's definitely this feeling of like, I'm not even focusing on judging them, because who am I to take, anything away from who they are.
Do you ever do that though? You walk into a bar, you're on vacation, whatever, and you judge how they're making a drink?
For sure. Yeah, it's inevitable. There are bars you go into with really big high hopes, and then you're let down. in Europe, I didn't have that. I have that more in America, I guess, more than I have that. But that's a whole nother subject about getting into, where do the awards come from in America and big cities versus small markets. And
What do you mean?
Well, just because, so like we're in Fort Wayne, and I would kill for Copper Spoon to get recognition for being a good cocktail bar, that I know it is, but it won't happen because there's too much, I think, money in bigger markets to allow a smaller market to win, because it doesn't work that way.
Do you think you would ever move to a bigger market?
I had the opportunity, and one day, sure. But for now, I'm definitely invested in Fort Wayne, making it what it is. I think in order for a small market to ever get its jump to be something bigger, you have to have people that are committed to staying, because anyone could always just leave. But I know that what we're doing is as good as some of these bars nationwide, and to know that is important enough. You have to ask yourself, do you really need your name, on some small glass plate in order to have validation, or do you yourself just know, like, we're doing good, and that's all that matters?
So does that mean you don't value the fact that you were in world class, that you were?
That's different, I guess, because that's more on I guess they call it the Olympics of bartending. That's definitely more on how do I say this? People from small markets win competitions.
Yeah.
And that's okay. That happens.
And that's good.
Bars from small markets don't win awards, though.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
That's as an aggregate scale, as a bar, it's really hard to get your bar on that list.
Yeah.
You can work really, really hard. But then you have to ask yourself that what's really important. Is it those bars aren't going to keep those lists. More bars on those lists have closed than you can count. And that win awards, and the next year they're closed. So it's, what is it that really makes your bar good? It's the people and how people are feeling when they're leaving. That's what's important.
So you keep coming back to you got to make people feel good. They come into the bar, read what they're wanting. Do they want to just have a good time? Are they on a business meeting?
Right.
Whatever. Would you say that that's a important aspect to life in general?
Yeah. Yeah, I think even you get to go back to be better at that point, and recognize that you want everyone to be better. And so by treating people good, by making people feel good in whatever interaction you're coming across them, and that's the way to do it.
So then how do you deal with, there's been some people on, whether it's online, Yelp, Instagram, whatever, people have said Copper Spoon, bartender there, sidecar.
Right.
Drinks are too strong.
Sure. You're not going to please everybody, which is fine. Not everything in this world is meant for everybody, and that's okay. Some people come to it with a sense of entitlement that, everything, and I should be able to go somewhere and get everything I want, or anything I'm looking for should be available for me. And sometimes it's not, and people get really upset. And, they want to take it to their take it to Yelp, take it to a review, and that's fine. That's their ability to do it. To me, I try not to care about it too much, because you can't win over the 1-star reviews every one at a time. People can, it depends if they're valued or not. If it's a valuable review, someone said that their server was, doing something they're not supposed to be doing, and it's like very, very probably obvious, or something like, the place is really messy, and it was messy. I'm like, that's a problem. You should look into it. But if they're saying something that it's overpriced, but is it? There's only so much you could do for that. Maybe that they just were misconceived on the value, or maybe at the same, you could take that and recognize that your staff saying, okay, how are we propositioning it? Is a server just walking up and being like, hey, you should get this $50 feature, and not even talking about like, well, actually, if you're wanting to get a beer and like a small plate, you can get in and out of here for $20, and it's not bad. Or people are just blind to it. Or people have only ever been to Cheesecake Factory, where the menu is 9 pages long and there's 300 items, and you can get anything.
Right.
And they're frustrated that the small local place doesn't do the same thing. Our drinks are definitely strong, and that's, to me, like, pertains to its value. But in
what way? Like, is it being made the way that it should be made?
Right.
Is it
getting your money's worth? It's funny. We were just talking about this at the bar the other day, because one of the bartenders went on a small trip with family up to a distillery in Indiana, and he ordered a Sazerac from the bar, a pretty normal classic cocktail, old-fashioned style drink, and the bartender goes to make it, and the ice that the bar was using was not very good. The ice for the production, not even the ice that the drink goes on. So I'm not even talking about ice that I make or sell. I'm talking about there are ice machines that make it, and we've invested to make sure we have them. But if you know that you don't have the right tools to make a drink, then you should adjust your techniques to know what you're trying to make. Just like if you have a stovetop that won't get very hot and you want to make a steak, you just figure out how to get it hotter. Mm-hmm. So if you have ice that will over dilute your drink way too quick, then you have to figure out how to go around that then. You can't just be like, well, too bad. Sorry, steak says it has to cook for 5 minutes. If it's still rare, not my problem. Like, nope. If you don't have the right ice to make a proper stirred cocktail, then what can you do? Can you pre-make it, pre-dilute it, and chill it so it's at the temperature and take ice out of the question? What can you do? And it's a desire to want to make it that good that has to exist. And long story short, I mean, the Sazerac was probably 60% water by the time it hit
really?
The bartender. Yeah, so
wow.
But they charged like $13 for it, which is like a little above average price in Indiana for a Sazerac. And I'm sure though, because it was so watery, it was so easily drinkable. Mm-hmm. To me, I would taste it and be like, this tastes like water. This is not worth it. Send this drink back. I wouldn't, because I'm too nice and afraid.
You wouldn't send a drink back?
No, I don't do that.
Why not?
Because I don't want people to perceive me as an asshole.
Is that common? So if like I, as a customer, were to come in and send a drink back because it tastes like water, am I immediately an asshole?
No, because you don't bartend. So you're allowed to do
Fair
that.
enough.
To me, I don't want to go somewhere and, I've heard that when I go into a place, people get nervous. And I am so easygoing about stuff where... Is
that just because people recognize you from world class?
Whatever it is, yeah. Something in some way. And don't get me wrong, people come in and I get really excited to make them a drink and I don't want to mess it up, but I want their honest feedback. And I guess sometimes you have to earn the right to get an honest feedback.
Yeah.
Some people are just going to be like, no, it's fine. But in reality, in their head, they're like, oh, I'm just not going to come back, or like, I'm going to get beer next time, or you just need to... You have to get better in order for me to tell you how bad you really were. You have to that buy-in with it, I guess. But I guess when we talk about the strength of drinks and the value of them, this $13 Sazerac being mostly water, I'm sure some people that don't drink Sazeracs or that would be like, I don't really like them, and they try that and be like, oh, that's good, but it's good because it's mostly watered. So maybe actually what you don't like is you don't like it just like super booze forward cocktails. But now that bar's going to get by with selling to me like a super undervalued.
So it's some of it's just education then, is what you're saying.
Sure.
People have had sports bar drinks or sports bar cocktails their whole life, and then they come into a place and now they're having something that's crafted.
Yeah. Seafood is similar, I guess, in that nature, where you can go get like really poorly made sushi that's like mostly imitation, or mostly like there's no actual fish in it at all. It's mostly rice and avocado.
Imitation crab.
Yeah. And people try and be like, oh, wow, like this is good. I normally hate sushi, but it's really
good. I'm a sushi connoisseur.
Yeah, exactly. But then you go try the real stuff and you're like, well, that's gross. And you're like, well, the reason you're saying it's gross is because it tastes like what it's supposed to.
Right.
That's not the person's fault.
Yeah.
You just don't know what you're buying.
Right.
You've been gypped. And now, we have to educate you to this another level.
So in terms of educating to another level, you mentioned Instagram's a great tool for like seeing inside a bar. Do you think Instagram's helped educate, or social media has helped educate people? Yes,
people that want to. Some people don't. Mm-hmm. Some people, ignorance is bliss at the end of the day, I think. If you can allow yourself to let the, mystique of a bar or restaurant just kind of create delicious things, then that's going to be the easiest. But some, people love really getting into it and love taking the home aspect of it. Like people all the time are like, I tried to make your old fashioned at home, and I did this and this and this.
Is that a compliment for you?
I guess you could take it that way. I think it's neat that people get that excited about it, for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily want to take it as a compliment to myself.
Yeah.
I think it's neat that people just want to take it now to trying to recreate things at home. It's really fascinating.
Does that ever worry you that people are going to start just making their drinks at home and never come out to the bar?
Nah.
Why not?
Because when you go to a bar, if people are only coming to your bar for the cocktail, then you've done it wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
I think you said at one point, if people were only coming for the taste of the drink, then machine's going to beat you every time.
Robots are going to win eventually, right? They're always going to win. So, yeah, the robot will eventually. They're not right now. I mean, I keep up on Boston Dynamics to make sure, but they're still not.
They haven't come up with the thumbs.
Yeah, I think, this Christmas there was finally like a like a Keurig-esque cocktail machine that
Really?
was sold. Yeah.
Really?
I think I saw a few of them pop up on Facebook. It was
What?
like 200 something bucks, and you have to load in your own spirits. Like, you'll load in vodka, but you can put a Cosmo packet in, press a button, and a Cosmo will
packet?
come out. Yep.
Is it, the way that technology goes sometimes, have you ever seen the movie Wall-E?
Mm-hmm.
And like you finally get to see the humans. They're all in
Right.
these robot chairs and
Yeah.
everything's a smoothie.
Yeah.
Like that's what we're headed towards.
I know. It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. Nobody wants to do anything for themselves. Then they finally crash land. And it's like, this is walking. I know how to walk.
No, it's very much like you talk about wanting to get people making drinks at home or people trying to learn how to do it. But then now this little insert a packet and add your vodka and boop, it does it for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure there's something to be said, just like a chef would probably talk about, instant things and whatever. But yeah, if you're only doing the bar thing because you want if it's only for the drink, then I think you're doing it wrong, because there are a lot of bartenders I love to go see just simply because of their human element that they bring to it.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't care too much. Their drink making skills.
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, they hate making cocktails. I love. they hate that aspect of it. They're not dexterous. They're not here to do it. But the way they are as a bartender is really, really great, really admirable. I think that because you can run circles around young mixologists with leather aprons and waxy mustaches because they know how to actually talk to people.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's a good element. And having lived here for almost 10 years now in the Midwest, from DC originally, it's been cool to kind of see things trend towards that. You go to a bar for an experience with friends.
Sure.
You don't just go to a sports bar to watch the football game and booze up.
For sure.
So it's been really cool, and I think you've been a part of that, whether you want to admit it to yourself or not. It's a big deal. And I think it's cool that you're leading a team that does that. It's phenomenal. It's awesome.
Yeah, no, it definitely means a lot. I think it goes a step further too, even when people look into what they're drinking. One of my mentors told me a long time ago when we were talking about getting people to maybe drink more adventurously, and how do we as bartenders in general get people to do that. And you have to do that with buying in with trust. And there's a certain give and take with that. Some people, if someone ate chicken fingers or just mac and cheese for every meal every day of their entire life, people would be like, hey, that's weird. Like, what's wrong? Mm-hmm. But people that drink Captain and Diet every bar they go to, every time they get a drink, everywhere they're in life, people really don't blink an eye. And that's not really an issue. Because if that's what the person wants when they drink, I guess that's it. But I guess it's trying to split the element that you're not going out to bars because you want to drink a certain product, because it's going to be cheaper and easier for you to have just bought a bottle and go home and do it. You're going out because you want fun, whether it's with friends that you're with or you're wanting an environment. And sometimes that means drinking something a little different than what you might be used to. Mm-hmm. Or you should be more advantageous to, like, I drink this at home, but I'm going out and I'm going to see, like, what can this person make me? But as bartenders in this at the bar, we have to equally be accommodating. Mm-hmm. For a while there, and it's way past it. That was even before my time in New York, when bars would just not carry vodka because they were just, nope, I'm not going to carry vodka.
Really?
We're not going to make Cosmos. I'm
really?
tired of it. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was trying to force people would order a vodka soda, and you hear the bartender be like, ugh, no. But now that world is thankfully they kind of changed and got away. Vodka is becoming cool again. I think it mainly because a lot of those bartenders became bar owners and saw how profitable vodka was. And they realized that we can't not make Cosmos.
Right.
We need to
There's a money aspect to this.
Yeah, we got to pay the bills. So start making vodka cocktails.
So you've done a lot for the culture then. You've done a lot just individually, going to world class. What would you say is your finish line? Is there a finish line? I know some people say, man, you just run the race, and when you're done, you're done.
Sure.
You just keep going. Some people are very goal oriented. Like, hey, this is what I want to get to, and I'm going to get there, and then I'm going to set the next one. Where would you line up with that, and kind of what is your finish line, or is there a finish line for you?
It's tough. You could say there's either no finish line for me because I'll always have something else I want to do, or you could say it's because I distract myself too much. So it's hard to focus on this tangible finish line because, what is the finish line really? And then you can get to the theory of like, I just want to be happy, or what does that mean? Like, I don't know. And I remember this one guy coming in one night He was a little mysterious. People that come in talking on the phone, like with headphones, usually suck. And this guy kind of did, but I could tell he kind of knew how to do it. Like I could tell he frequently is on the phone in some kind of conference call, but goes to bars, and he was really good with that mute and being able to mute himself, but order a drink, but then go back to the phone.
Gotcha.
And maybe make those people not know he was at a bar. And I could definitely, he was from New York and had just moved to Chicago, and he was in Fort Wayne for some whatever work thing, whatever it is he does. And I got to kind of know him, and he'd always said, I remember at the end of the interaction, this is like 4 years ago now, he was like, "Oh, well, you're a great bartender, Trevor. Thank you." And he tipped me like $200, like give me $200 bills. And I was really taken back by it. But, I mean, he, paid with one of those really 100-pound black Amex cards. And I wasn't really sure. And so like a year goes by and I don't see this guy. He comes back again, and he remembered my name. I remember his name. I remember his drink order. And we were right back to it. And part of that was just like, maybe it's because this guy was like 45 and normally someone that would give a bartender a tough time. I wanted to win him over, and I did, and it felt good. And part of that was not having any ego and just letting him order. He wanted like a flavored vodka mule, something like that, whatever. And like, why not? Screw it. Let's do it. This guy really enjoyed it. It made him have a good time. And he was in what he thought was just going to be crappy Fort Wayne. And that was able to point in the right direction. He was wanting like live music. And I told him like, well, you can go to Club Soda and they're playing jazz, or you can go like here. And he came back a year later, and we were talking, and he asked about live music again, but he had told me that he wanted to go, like, he's like, I want like a dive bar, like garage band style music. And I told him about the Brass Rail. Yeah. And that night, for whatever reason, we ended up as a staff closing down and going there, and this guy was there. And again, I mean, this guy in his 50s and does something that makes him a lot of money for him to also be at the Brass Rail. And then I find out that when he was like 20 something, he was in a garage band. And he loves going to little bars and like meeting like the young kids that are in bands as well, even though he sold out. Now he does a lot. And then we were talking, and he was asking, like, he was like, well, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to be a bartender forever or what? The famous question. And I said, well, no, I want to open a bar. And I'm standing there with my coworkers, and he was game planning it in his head. He's like, well, like, what's it cost to open a bar? And he tells us, he's like, well, I actually am in this investment group, like me and some guys, like we throw money around to make things happen. And he gave like me and some of the bartenders there like a test. And he was like, he had asked me what I would do with like what's my idea if I had, $10 million or something like that. And I told him something, and he asked the next bartender, he's like, what would you do if I gave you $10 million? And that bartender was like, I would just give it to him. And he pointed to me. He was like, and I would just make money off of it, thinking he'd like won this like investment broker off of him. Like, I know what I'll do. I'll do no work, but make all the reward off of it. Yeah. And the guy said, nah. He's like, I would give it to him all day, and pointed to me. He's like, because he'll work for it. He actually wants it. Like he actually is motivated enough to make sure it works. He's like, you're lazy, or in some way, and called him out, which is funny because that guy was lazy. And that's always stuck with me, I guess, and you call it. I always will work for it. Yeah. So then, is this how Cubicle got started? Cubicle being, for those that might not know, you started an ice business, right? Yeah. And similar story. Brought Clear Ice to Indiana. Brought Clear Ice. No. Cubicle was not really something I thought I was going to do until I went to Minneapolis and saw Ice Commissary, and then started thinking like, oh, this actually wouldn't be that big of a deal. That wasn't like the investor or anything. I actually haven't talked to that guy in a couple of years. I think I have his business card somewhere. I should email him. Probably a good idea. Yeah, maybe. But it was just funny because I think early on in the bartending world to try to start to thinking about like, oh, like there is actually something to be said about work ethic. So would you say that's your finish line, is just keep working hard for as long as you can? Yeah. I mean, and again, that's when you get into the theory about what would make you really happy. What makes you happy? A lot of things. If you had to list it down career wise or industry wise, what's like one of the top things? I would love to win world class. That's the goal for 2020 for sure. To try and win. Be the best bartender in the world. Yep. You're saying it right now. Yeah. It's impressive. It's a big goal. It's a big goal. But definitely trying to put forth that effort and to do it be great. And then there's a lot of other goals. We just officially made Be Better Hospitality a thing. Oh, really? Yep. What is that? Explain. So like formulating an official hospitality group that we can be recognized as a team. Because I think right now it's a little confusing about, me and like what my title is. What do I do? What do I really do? What do all these other people do? What is Copper Spoon? But then there's Cubicle, and then there's Sidecar, and then they're like, we want to do these other things, but let's like, what is it? And so what you end up being is a hospitality group. And you've got some major ones out there. I can't think of the one. Is the big one in Chicago that like owns like 3 dogs and stuff. You've major ones, you have small ones, but you end up having a group like you have like the Alinea group. That's Grant Ockets, and they have the Aviary and Alinea and Royster, and just all these. They have Aviary in New York now.
So would that be like I think in Columbus there's what's it called? There's a taco place, and then that same owner of that taco place owns like the same one in Cincy, and then they own a couple other variations of it.
So like the Cunningham group is coming to Fort Wayne. Cunningham, they started Brewburger, but they also own Vita, and they own Union 50, and they own some other places in Indy and Cincy, and then now they're coming to Fort Wayne. So that's a hospitality group.
Gotcha. And so that's what your goal is.
Yeah, that's definitely the next part is taking people that we've already created something with and saying, okay, I think we've got a knack for it. I think we know what we're doing here. Let's go bigger and start opening more places, be it in Fort Wayne, and then eventually maybe taking it farther.
Now, you're obviously talented behind the bar. You started a few businesses. Would you trade winning world class in 2020 for having this hospitality group grow? Sorry, sometimes I like to ask interesting questions. It's always a toss-up, right? So everything requires sacrifice on some level. You never necessarily know what sacrifice you're going to have to make. Yeah. You talk to a lot of really successful businessmen, and they love their success. But they're like, man, I really wish I hadn't sacrificed my marriage, or I really wish I hadn't sacrificed my time with my kids. What is that sacrifice level?
I would say that I could do the.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying not to make it. I don't know. Be better is bigger than just me, and therefore, what it is meant to be can be accomplished by the other people behind that wheel. And in its early out stages of what we're doing, I think that both are possible. I guess that's probably a typical Trevor answer to that question is I want just both, no sacrifice. We'll just do both. We'll invent more time somewhere along the way. And yeah. Laura Newman, one of my friends who I got to do world class with a couple years ago, she won the year that I was in. She was in the process of opening her bar. And I mean, while she was on her way to getting second place in globals, she had pneumonia and was in the process of like a week away from opening her bar in Alabama. So it's like anything's possible. Like you can, some people in so many given situations would just lays out and just sleep or give up or be like, nah, I'm going to focus on this one thing. And I'm sure my girlfriend's rolling her eyes if she's listening to this, telling me to just focus on one thing at a time.
Right.
But I think part of this is knowing right now life feels kind of fragmented with so many different things going on. Yeah. Whether it was just Friday night, I was bartending, and then Monday morning, I'm going through learning how to be an accountant for a business, and then on the next day, I'm trying to read about corporate law and just trying to consolidate all this and put it into something a little easier. And like, okay, I know that I want this hospitality group to grow, and I want to do it with these people, but what can my job actually just be? And knowing that like, okay, I want to do the cocktail thing. I still want to be a beverage director. And I guess the title we've kind of played with is just operations in general, operations with food and beverage and the whole thing. But I can do it on a bigger scale. So trying to not have to wear as many hats, wear one bigger hat.
That's fair.
And trying to put so many little ones on. That's fair. One of those hats can be world class. The application to get into that whole process, we're very far away from that. Application of the process is due in 15 days. So that's round 1. And then there's round 2. If you get into round 2, then you go to regionals. From regionals, you go to nationals, and then nationals to globals.
It's insane.
So we're a far road away from that. So it's definitely a dream right now, but it's a big focus.
That's awesome, man. So thank you, first of all, for being on. I appreciate it. I think we've covered a lot of things. It'd be sweet to kind of do a recap not a recap, but a round two. Our goal as Tastemakers this year is to try to tell as many stories as possible, and then also bring people back. We're really hoping to, as you go through the qualifications, maybe you can spare a moment, come back.
For sure.
Hang out, chit chat, even if we just do an audio thing, man. I know we're doing some video work, trying to come out with a little bit of a series here. But people like audio. They like listening, and in the car, at the office, when the boss isn't looking. I think you're a great dude. You've hung out.
Thanks.
You really got a good head on your shoulders, man. I like where you're headed.
No, thank you.
So where can, just real quick, if people are listening still, where can they find you? Where would you want them to find you?
You can follow me along at Scovel on Instagram. Or you can stop by Copper Spoon or in the summer Sidecar. And I'm sure I'll be around for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's rad, man. Well, hey, thanks for spending, I think it's about an hour and a half now, something like that.
That went quick.
Hanging out. It does go quick, doesn't it?
It does.
It's insane.
Yeah.
It's fun. I think I was interviewing a chef that we both know, and I looked down and I'm like, oh my gosh, you've been here for 2 hours. This is nuts. Now I got to edit all this. But no, it's good. It's good. It's fun to get to know a personal side of you a little bit more and see where you're headed. So
I appreciate it, Jim. Thank you.
Yeah, man. We'll reconnect in a month or two.
Okay. Sounds good.
Peace out, man.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. And be sure to like, subscribe. Go check out our YouTube channel. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple, really wherever you are listening to this thing. Just make sure you hang out and stay tuned for more episodes. I'm sorry for not being consistent. I'm a jerk. Life's busy. You never really know what direction you're going until you get there. But yeah, like, subscribe, hit the notification, and then stay tuned for more awesome people like Trev.